Hello there. Welcome to another talk. I don't think I did a talk yesterday, and this talk is called "The Spiritual Awakening is the Key to Ascension." And ultimately, that is the truth. You know, I had an unexpected spiritual awakening just under 10 years ago. And I did nothing to get it. I did nothing to induce this. I went for a few hypnosis sessions before that to enter past lives. But this awakening was on a different level. And when I went through this awakening at the start, I went through a rebirthing process. I believe that it took me to before I was born. I've always had this idea, because as soon as the awakening happened, I felt different. And I've always had this theory that maybe I went through a soul switching experience, because if you had a soul switch at the point of the soul entering the body, as soon as they cross and the two souls meet each other before the transition, that new soul would then have all my memories. And then it would become you, but it would have its own personality also. And that would explain why all of a sudden I felt differently. Because in that new soul's mind, because it's taken on all the memories of Sean, it's that person, so it has all the memories. So to it, it's like it's just had an awakening. But this is a theory I've had for many years. And that's very interesting. You know, this soul switching thing is a very popular idea. But the spiritual awakening, yeah, that happened. I was 24 years of age. I didn't know it was going to happen. I was basically a druggie. I don't like that word, but you know, the worst thing about me, I had a lot of depression. And I remember I sat down one day and I had enough. And I really meant it as well. It was like an authentic moment. Then after that, I started to go through this awakening. I started to cry all the time. I didn't know what was happening. Then as weeks went by, it dawned on me what had happened. I didn't know it was called a spiritual awakening. Until I started watching, I came across Buddhism on YouTube. I came across people that have had spiritual awakenings. I thought, oh God, this is what I've been going through. And Jesus Christ as well. Basically, it's all the same thing they're talking about. It's the spiritual awakening thing. And so that gave me a bit more confidence. And regarding David Icke, I didn't know David Icke was till many years into the awakening. My mum said, "You sound like David Icke," and so did someone else say that. And I didn't know who that was. And then, obviously, I had my own information. I speak about non-duality, not through any course I've done, but because of the spiritual awakening journey. All my information regarding ascension, spiritual awakening, non-duality, nothingness, awareness, consciousness, all from my own spiritual awakening. When I came across David Icke, that got me into the artificial intelligence, the smart grid, important information for the global awakening. My family, my mum is a psychic and of travelling Romany gypsies, but didn't know what I was going through. She didn't know what a spiritual awakening was, until I showed her some videos on YouTube. And neither did any of my family. Like my dad yesterday said, "Oh, I was awake 40 years ago." I said, "No, Dad, you weren't." My family didn't know what a spiritual awakening was until I started speaking about it. Because when I first had the awakening, I didn't speak about it to my family for many years, because you don't really know what's happening. You know, your consciousness has changed, your perceptions has changed, and you know, you don't really know what's happening. Even when it's a spiritual journey, you think, how do I explain this? And it was only a few years ago that I started to open up with it and started to speak about it. You know, I remember when I done my first video in here, my first talk. Yeah, and that's my path, and like I say, it's all within you. That's how you access the same power. I'm not better than anyone. I've tried to help my family spiritually awaken by telling them how to, but they're obviously just not ready yet. They're not ready. And I guess when I had the awakening, and once you realise what your path is to awaken other people, I thought, well, my family's the first people I've got to try and awaken. I've done that. The thing I've got to do is be an example. That's what you've got to do. Once you had that spiritual awakening, your job is to be an example of that awakening, and the right people will follow you. Some people will be like, I've had people that have contacted me. I've had hypnotherapists. I've had people that have done spiritual courses contacting me and hating on me because they've not had the spiritual awakening. You see? Now you get some hypnotherapists that have had spiritual awakenings before that, and they do hypnotherapy to induce a spiritual awakening, but the difference is they know what state to put you in. Like my dad done a course in hypnotherapy, and he said, oh, hypnotherapy can get you an awakening. Well, no, because if you've not had an awakening, you wouldn't know what state to put someone in. A lot of the time, the spiritual awakenings are completely unexpected. You're not consciously aware that they're going to happen when they do. This is how it is for many people. If it was a situation where someone will build down the road, does a hypnotherapy course, if it was like that, don't you think that all them people with money would be going to them instead of Buddhism monasteries and spiritual locations and India? Do you not think they would do that instead? Of course they would. But you know, hypnotherapy is to do with the subconscious mind. When you spiritually awaken, you're interacting with infinite levels of the subconscious. It's like you're interacting with the infinite self, right? And hypnotherapy is all about, I've been for hypnotherapy, that's all about accessing what is possible within the mind. But you've got so many layers of the subconscious within the physical mind. But in the spiritual awakening, you're accessing what I call the holographic brain. And that is an infinite brain. That is a limitless consciousness that is outside of your body. And this consciousness is what powers the body. But that's why it's so much deeper. It's so much more beyond than just accessing the mind. When I went for hypnotherapy, I went for past life regression, and the hypnotist made it very clear to me that she could only access, but the hypnosis could only access what was in the mind, and in the mind is past life, but she can't access if you've been an alien in another reality sometime, because it's only the human brain it can access. That's why I guess hypnotists have never contacted me saying they've had a spiritual awakening. Yet they do a course, they'll do a course on awakening, which is made up by someone that's never had an awakening themselves. And this is the problem with spiritual awakening. You've got people you get the people that do the courses, and you get the people that have had spiritual awakenings. If you've just done a course, you're still a third dimensional human. In order to become, to align with the fifth dimensional self, you've got to have the spiritual awakening. My dad says to me yesterday, oh, if you're interacting with the heaven self, you wouldn't be here. No, because everything is here. What did Buddha once say? Buddha once said, be here now. That's because everything is here. In Buddhism, they talk about how everything is here. Everything came from nothingness, which is true. So that means there is, when we think we're traveling somewhere, we're not really. It's a perception. We're in a perceptual state, holographic state of awareness. And we aren't going anywhere. Everything is here. You can access any realm or dimension within the space you're occupying. And that's what you're doing in spiritual awakening. And in spiritual awakening, the third eye, the pineal gland, has now awakened itself, and it's contacting, you can call it violet flame, the heaven self, and that's the you that lives in heaven. Heaven is a realm. The beginning of that realm is the fifth dimension. And this is the key to ascension. Once you open up that gateway within the heart space and you're spiritually awakening, you're getting relentless knowings, you're getting relentless insight and understanding and clarity, all in the same moment. What you're interacting, and the fourth dimension as well that you go through before you're in the fifth dimension, you start being aware of parallel universes. That's why I talk about parallel realities, like a scientist would talk about it. Because I've went through this fourth dimensional experience. And after the fifth dimension, no other made-up dimensions are important after that, because everything is infinite love, and everything is infinite love. And you realise all things are made up by people. Love is the only truth. The reason love exists is because once you have awareness from nothing, it's grateful because it exists from nothing. So it's like this gratefulness love that exists. And from that love comes other versions of love. Like sexuality, for example. The sexual energy exists because of the gratefulness for its existence. Gratification. But yeah, the spiritual awakening is the key to ascension. Yeah, and this is what, I've been going through. You get the spiritual awakening, which is unexpected a lot of the time, but it doesn't have to be. I had a rough traumatic awakening so that you wouldn't have to have it. So that I can tell you how to induce it. How you induce it right now is you be present. You let go. Once you let go of the external illusions and you decide to go within your heart center and you mean it, and you're authentic, pure authenticity, that's when I awakened, and that's when you'll awaken. You've got to be absolutely authentic. God only listens to pure authenticity. And now I take so many supplements every day and vitamins. I'm on this amazing health road because the spiritual awakening changes your emotions, thus changing your energy field, thus changing your consciousness, thus changing your physical body, your health. Your thoughts and feelings determine how your health is. And that's how you create good health in yourself. You live from the heart center, and then from that we can get heart coherence with others, and this can heal the whole planet. But it starts from that you need this spiritual awakening first. And that is the key to the ascension path. All is within you. And I'm just going to leave it there. For latest updates and talks like this and news, I'm pretty much an online journalist as well. I report things that's happening as well. Please do visit my website at www.lovelightfamily.com. Thank you for watching and listening. Thank you.